Hello friends, welcome to the fantastic world of stories and why we tell them from Culture Katha. In this series, as you know, we are looking at many interesting but unexplored aspects of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata. In this week's video, we start from where we left the story last, which was the story of Drona and Ekalavya. In that context, we also looked at caste system and social hierarchy in the epic. You may remember that. Instead of pursuing a priestly profession, Drona approached sage Parashurama to partake of the accumulated wealth the sage was distributing among Brahmins. But by the time Drona sought him out, the sage had donated away all his riches. No material wealth was left with Parashurama. A disappointed Drona then decided to acquire the knowledge of military weapons from the sage. With this knowledge, he approached his childhood friend Drupada, who had succeeded his father Prishata as the king of Panchala. But before we get to know what happened when Drona met Drupada, I would like to share a popular story told about Drona, found in many versions of the epic. According to the story, Drona was so poor that he was unable to feed his son Ashwatthama even with milk. Once, the little boy drank a white liquid made from rice powder, mistaking it for milk. The boy's mean friends teased little Ashwatthama for his ignorance and made him cry. When Drona came to know this, he was very upset and decided to seek the help of his old friend Drupada, who was now king. Now, this story does not feature in the Adi Parvan of the critical edition of the epic. In the version narrated in the critical edition, after having acquired celestial weapons and mastery over archery, Drona happily set out to meet his old friend Drupada, possibly to seek employment with him, in the belief that his own martial skills and knowledge of weapons would benefit his Kshatriya friend. After all, during their days together as students, Drupada had promised Drona that when he became king, he would happily share his wealth and riches with his dearest friend Drona. Trusting Drupada to keep his word, Drona approached him for help. But to his rude shock, Drupada did not extend the expected hearty welcome. Instead, Drupada rejected their old friendship, saying Drona, a poor man, a mere commoner, could no longer be friends with a king such as himself. He even lectured Drona on how friendship could only be among equals. Enraged by Drupada's arrogance, Drona vowed to avenge this insult and decided on a course of action which led him to Hastinapura. By doing so, Drona unwittingly set off a chain of events that eventually culminated in the bloody Kurukshetra war. Many scholars and historians see the Kurukshetra war not as a fallout between the cousins Pandavas and the Kauravas, but rather as a conflict between the Kurus and the Panchalas, the two most important clans of their period. And Drona was one of the cogs in the wheel that turned the fortunes of these clans towards destruction. In Hastinapura, Drona found employment with the Kurus, to whom he swore loyalty right till the end. He trained the Kauravas and the Pandavas in several martial skills. When their education was complete and they had been tested for their skills, he asked them for his Guru Dakshina. Drona commanded them to raid Panchala, capture Drupada, and bring the king to him. His obedient students set out to do so at once. Armed with weapons and the skills acquired from their teacher, the Kuru princes climbed onto their chariots, rode towards Panchala, destroyed it, went to the capital city and captured Drupada. They then brought him to Drona. Drona, of course, forgave Drupada, but not before reminding him of the earlier humiliation he had faced from Drupada. Drupada had told Drona how friendship was possible only between equals and their statuses were unequal. But now their fortunes had been reversed. Here was Drona, who had captured Drupada's kingdom, and Drupada was his prisoner. Drona's status now was superior to that of Drupada. Drona, however, decided to forgive Drupada and decided to equalize their status by returning half the kingdom to Drupada. Now they were both kings and by Drupada's expectations could be friends. And so that was how Drona avenged the insult heaped on him by his once dear friend. It's also possible that Drupada got to know of Arjuna's superior martial skills during this episode. This possibly made him aspire to have Arjuna as his son-in-law. After all, it was only keeping Arjuna in mind that he set up the challenge for the warriors at the Swayamvara of his daughter Draupadi. But then, an eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. Although Drona claimed to forgive Drupada and return half his kingdom to him, Drupada was not one to take his defeat lightly. He fretted and fumed over Drona's payback and started to plan his own revenge to settle scores with his friend. The rest, as they say, is Itihasa. Drupada raised two children, Drishtadyumna and Draupadi, who played a huge role in the annihilation of the Kuru clan. And Drishtadyumna, of course, proved to be Drona's nemesis. Eventually, the Panchala clan too was wiped out, with Drupada and all his sons being killed in the war. In a sense, the seed for the banyan tree-like epic can be traced to the story of Drona and Drupada, their relationship and their revenge. Think back, without the Drona-Drupada episode, there would be no Draupadi, and without Draupadi, there would have been no Kurukshetra war. In a sense, the Drona-Drupada story is like a prototype to all wars in human history. Be it the two world wars, the Gulf War, or even the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, they've all had their beginnings in the personal egos, fears and insecurities of individuals. Sadly, it's in the power of an individual to set off a crisis of epic proportions that can have terrible implications for all of humanity. Friends, I shall leave you with that somber thought. But do stay with me on this epic journey to unravel and understand the wonder that is the Mahabharata. Till we meet again, it's Tara, bye-bye. Take care.